What's going on, everybody? Obviously, very, very disappointing, certainly end to that game. Really ugly, almost all of the game. A heck of a game from Jaden Reed, if we want to talk about positives. But right now, obviously, all concern is about Jordan Love and what's ultimately going to be the injury designation. It looks like we have a lot of doctors in the chat. We've got shin, ankle, knee, forearm. I think everything else, mentioned here in the chat. I have no idea. I don't think any of us know exactly the extent of it at this point. Obviously, we're all nervous. I think hoping for the best, and hopefully we don't have to brace for the worst. But obviously, you never want to see a situation like that, end a game or just at any point in the game. Yeah, I mean, this as I kind of tweeted out, yeah, it's a bad night if they lose the game. If Jordan's fine, it's not the end of the world. They'll get better through the course of the season. That was about as ugly of a game as you can possibly play. And the Eagles had a lot of ugliness on their side as well. Just a very sloppy. We talked about it pregame, right? Like week one is chaos. It's basically your preseason game. It's not going to be indicative of the team that you are at the end of the year at all. But it was an ugly game. Doesn't really matter. Like I said, in the scheme of things, of course, it can affect NFC standings and all those sort of things. A loss is a loss. You only get 17 of those games guaranteed. And if one of them's in the loss ledger, it's going to hurt at some point. But like I said, that game's not going to define Green Bay overall. An injury for Jordan Love for any period of time, whether it's 4 weeks, 8 weeks, season ending, or maybe just 1 week, that can definitely change things. So that is obviously the major concern here as to what's going to happen with Jordan Love. Obviously, if anything comes up that we get a confirmation from Matt LaFleur on anything, let me know. So just keep me posted on that. I doubt we're going to get any update on anything tonight, unless it's like actually good news where Matt's like, yeah, we don't think it's anything serious. But yeah, I don't know. This is obviously a very, very frustrating situation from a Packers fan point of view. Obviously, from a Packers point of view, you give the guy the biggest contract in NFL history, and now you're concerned about, is he going to be able to play this season? Or again, is it just something that's ultimately not that big? We don't know. And we're only going to have to wait and see. And that's the worst part of it, right? Is just not knowing at this point and just having to fear for the worst. And maybe it's nothing, maybe it's something, but again, at this point, we just don't know. I know everyone wants to jump to conclusions. I'm not going to jump to a conclusion one way or the other. It was great to see him walk off, but was it Rondell Mealy back in the day who played the second half of a preseason game on a torn ACL and ran for 100 yards on that day? I could be mixing up my backup preseason running backs, but I do remember there was a running back who played on a torn ACL in the second half of the game and ran for 100 yards in like a preseason game, something to that extent. So you can never quite tell. And other times it looks brutal and they're back. And maybe if it had went into overtime, maybe Jordan would have played. We don't know at this point. And I know that part of it sucks. Arnaldo, hi, Andy. How high is the most horrible games you have watched of the Packers? Is this one? And how much of a factor was the field also horrible? I thought in the second half, it seemed like the teams adjusted to the field conditions a little bit better, changed their cleats, and it didn't seem like as many people were slipping in the second half. It sounds like, and for the record, Green Bay's field is one of the most slippery fields that I've ever seen in the NFL as well. And from all indications this grass was brought in and grown and basically cooperated by the Eagles and the Packers, who both use this exact same type of field in Philly and in Green Bay. And by all accounts, yesterday when the Eagles were practicing on it, it was amazing. There was a lot of humidity in Brazil. You had kind of that cool night with the high humidity, which can lead to slicker conditions. I think that's what it was. I don't think personally that had anything to do with it being international. It was not a soccer field. This was a specific football field turf that they had brought in that again was grown and made specifically for this game. So I don't think that this was anything of like, oh my God, look what Brazil did, or look at this I think this would have, this was just a happenstance of conditions, and that sucks. And it really looked awful in the first half with all the slipping, but I do think for the most part in the second half, they got it under control a little bit more. As far as the, as horrible of a game as this was, I tweeted this out as well. It didn't have the stakes by any means, and it was not a game where Green Bay led by a bunch and they blew the game. So it doesn't feel maybe quite the same. I thought from a mistakes standpoint, this was one of the games, maybe more than a 2014 Seahawks game. Like, I thought this was one of the most mistakes I've ever seen in a game from like all facets. You had one missed field goal by Brady Narveson, which overall, not the end of the world in the scheme of things, but that didn't help. And then on the offensive side of the ball, some really bad throws from Jordan, opportunities to connect on passes. Should have been a pick six by Nakobe Dean. Obviously, the interception on the throw to Musgrave, and just missed some easy throws that he had. The Jaden Reed one that he skipped into the ground. Just not a great day from Jordan, and receivers not helping him out. Some plays that were behind, but his receivers had the opportunity to make the catch and just didn't. We had multiple drops, the insane amount of penalties, and a couple. We can talk about, we can multitask here, right? I know this game was not lost because of the referees. This game was lost because of the multitude of mistakes, but we can also multitask and say there were some brutal calls, especially at the end of that game. There was not a holding penalty on Jair Alexander. That would have been a 3rd and 12. That is an ideal down and distance for the defense in that situation. And instead, you end up with an automatic first down. And the Eagles just kind of drove right down the field, ended up getting a field goal. The time was done by the time Green Bay basically got the ball back. I wish in hindsight that the time would have been done and they would have scored a touchdown and we just could have got out of there. And instead, obviously, Love plays that play and ends up injured on it. So, it was an ugly game. Ugly from Philly, too. And Green Bay did not take advantage of their opportunities early in the game when Philly was making all their mistakes. And then when Green Bay made theirs later, Philly took advantage of it. And that's ultimately kind of the difference in the game. Green Bay had zero right winning that game. They could have. They were there. They were in it, but they had zero right winning that game the way that they played. Kudos to Jaden Reed. I thought he was phenomenal in that game. Just some of the stuff that he consistently did, and obviously making the explosive plays. But I wonder if Matt is going to go back and be maybe a little bit frustrated that he didn't run the ball more in this game. If you want some positive, there's plenty of positive takeaways in this one. It's hard again after a loss and after seeing your QB go down. After a slow start for Josh Jacobs, he goes 16 for 84, 5.3 yard average, and also had 2 catches for 20 yards. So he has 104 yards on the day, averaging over 5 yards per touch. And then Emmanuel Wilson, 4 for 46, and Jaden Reed had the 1 rush for 33 yards. But on the ground, they went 21 for 163, a 7.8 yard average. They were able to run the ball when they wanted to. I do wonder if Matt's going to maybe regret not running more. 35 passes, 34 from Love, and then 1 from Willis at the end. And again, only 21 rushing attempts and only 16 from Josh Jacobs, only 4 from Emmanuel Wilson, who ran really, really well in that game. So I do wonder if he's going to have, some second guessing of sort of the just maybe not running the ball as much as he should have. But I'll say this, I thought overall, and we can nitpick a couple things in this game. Overall, the game plan was awesome for Matt LaFleur. This offense had every right to put up 42 plus points in this game at least. Like, they should have been in the 40s if they just executed. I mean, there again, the bad passes, the drops, the penalties, everything was there for Green Bay. They got 2 drives set up early in enemy territory, couldn't take advantage of them. And we'll talk about the defense, I'm sure, a ton as well. But some very few positives to take away. I thought the blocking got better as the game went on. There was certainly some aspects of the running game that looked very good. And then again, Jaden Reed looked phenomenal, but way too many mistakes. The tackling on defense was atrocious. I mean, absolutely atrocious. And I'll just, we can do some low hanging fruit here. All right. So should the Packers have played more in preseason? I don't know. Maybe. Would it help them in week 1? Sure. Could this Jordan Love injury have happened in a preseason game? Yeah, it could have. And I mean, obviously not in that same situation. They're probably not going, trying to throw deep down the field and do laterals late in the game in a preseason game, but you get my point. Green Bay, if the goal was to get into the regular season without any injuries, they did for the most part. And that's a huge part of it, is you want to get into the regular season healthy. And if all of a sudden you're starting behind the 8 ball and 3, 4, 5 of your guys are already hurt going into the year, that's certainly going to hurt you. And again, I will say this too, Green Bay had every opportunity to win this game if they just go out and execute, and they didn't. And to I'm sure everyone's point on the opposite side of, maybe if you play more in preseason, maybe you execute better, which I agree. But it probably goes the same for Philly. Philly looked bad in this game for the vast majority too. So I feel like it was, kind of equal footing on both sides. Both teams didn't play much in preseason. Both teams had to fly all the way out to Brazil. And we're going to see a lot of this all throughout week 1. There's going to be some crappy, sloppy football. This is what we see now in the early parts of the season. And, we just have to kind of get over it to some extent. I've said this from all of preseason, and I'll say it next preseason as well. There is no perfect answer. If you're a coach, if you play your starters in preseason more, you're just praying to the football gods that you don't have any serious injuries. Because if you get the Jordy Nelson torn ACL in preseason, everyone wants to absolutely annihilate you of why is he even in there in the first place? And you will get dragged right under the bus. And if you come out and have a slop fest like this game and you don't play your starters in preseason, everyone's going to drag you right under the bus. So you are damned if you do, damned if you don't with that decision. I will support either decision every single time. But if you are going to not play in the preseason games, you can't have a slop fest like this, or it is going to get called out. It's as simple as that. And I get it's really hard to have your cake and eat it too in those situations. Again, because they could have played more and maybe they win this game, but maybe, name your two favorite players. Maybe they get major injuries in the preseason because they played more in the preseason. So weigh it out. I don't think there's a perfect answer to it, but this was a not acceptable level of football on the field from Green Bay. Still trying to check Twitter a little bit here, see if anything comes through. Again, I don't really expect it to, especially because everyone that's in Brazil can't freaking tweet anyway. Yeah, I don't think anything's come through yet. If there is, so Love is being helped off the field by Dr. Pat McKenzie and Nate Weir. Yeah, not great. Oh, that was the play actually. Okay, my bad. All right. Yeah, so no, I don't think anything's come through yet. Fun fact, yellow is Brazil's flag reps and NFL penalties. Fair enough, Brandon. Connor, the officiating didn't lose us the game, but it absolutely hurt us. What would it take for the NFL to do something with notoriously bad crews? I mean, they evaluate them. They try to get better. It's week one for the officials as well. These are not easy things to get right. There's a lot going on. I think there's things that the NFL can do. They can do full-time officials. They can put even more referees on the field. With more referees could come more penalties. Hopefully they're correct penalties and not wrong calls. You could challenge, you open up challenging of bad penalties, but that opens up a whole can of worms as well. This is another one where there's not a perfect answer here, but they do evaluate the officials. The NFL playoff officials get put together based on performances during the course of the season. And of course they can always, move on from officials if they're not doing good enough. But again, like you said, Connor, I don't think this is a game where you look back and say this was a loss due to the officiating, but there were some key penalties in some key moments that definitely hurt Green Bay in this one. Same old D. Haha, I'm done getting excited about it. This crap. Natalie, I understand. I very much do. If we're going to make the statement pregame of, hey, let's not jump to too many conclusions based off of one game, good, bad, or ugly, then we shouldn't jump to too many conclusions based off of one game, good, bad, or ugly. There's a lot of ugly, though. Lots and lots of ugly. As I said during the game, we will not judge Jeff Hafley long-term off of this performance. His career will go on and has a lot of chapters to be written yet. But it is very abundantly clear that the honeymoon period is over. And now it's, all right, you got to go out and put a better defense on the field, because that was bad defense. That was very bad defense. And what I always look at is who's doing the dictating. And there were plays where Green Bay dictated. There were opportunities, right? They get multiple turnovers. And I did sort of say all along, you want to play a more aggressive brand of football? Sometimes is what you get. They gave up some big plays, right? And they got dictated to at times. There are other times where Xavier McKinney's got a pick. They get the one gift fumble. Jair gets a pick. Keyshawn almost had a pick six. Like, they were in positions to make some bigger plays that also could have altered this game. And the tackling in and of itself, like if you tackle better in this game and you come up with some of those plays that they had the opportunity to come up with, this defensive performance looks a whole hell of a lot different. And to Jeff Hafley's defense, and I will say the same about Joe Barry, I will say the same about Mike Pettin and Dom Capers, they can't go out on the field and tackle for you. And we have heard from this defense, they were excited to play for Jeff Hafley. They were ready to fly around. They were ready to hit people and be more physical. Guess what? That means you have to get your guy to the ground. And this defense for 4 quarters could not get their guy to the ground. That was an awful tackling performance. No two ways about it. So they get that cleaned up. You come up with some of those plays. It probably looks better, but this was, again, unequivocally a not good enough performance from the defense. And it could have been, I think, probably a little bit worse as well, if we're being honest. Certainly if Philly would have executed a little bit better. Their O-line is better than our D-line, and Love Wild. Their O-line better than our D-line and Love Wild. I'm not sure exactly what the second part of that means, Dan, but their offensive line dominated Green Bay's defensive line, especially their edge rushers. And Rashawn Gary had that one play that looked like it was going to be a false start, and he got around the or looked like it was going to be offsides by Devontae Wyatt, but he was still enough in the neutrals, or not in the neutral zone enough, far enough back. But outside of that, Rashawn was very, very quiet. And then you had, Preston Smith made a couple good plays in the run game, but outside of that, didn't do anything. I will say, like, a lot of these edge rushers were playing contain on Jalen Hurts, making it so that he would not get out of the pocket. And I thought for the most part, they did a good job of making sure Hurts did not hurt them with his legs, but he hurt them a lot with his arm. So, pick your poison sometimes. But we'll see a little bit more of, I think, the pass rush when you're not having to play as much contain, although next week get ready for Anthony Richardson, which is going to be another quarterback that you have to contain. And then, obviously when maybe don't have quite the receiving core that Philly does, and, you're not going against, Jordan Mailata and Lane Johnson. Those are two tough matchups, but I did think Philly's offensive line played very, very well in this game, save for maybe a handful of plays. Any other updates? Just kind of keeping an eye on everything here. No, it doesn't look like anything yet. All right. A lot of super chats. Johnny W., thank you so much for that. Appreciate it a ton. Gary just doesn't affect the game enough. Again, I will say there's a lot of contain in this game. Lots of QB contain. And that makes it tough to make an impact. It makes it tough to pin your ears back and get after the quarterback. But you would like to have seen still maybe a little bit more of an impact from him. It did have the one sack, had a pass broken up on the rollout play by Hurts 2 plays before the sack, but there was a lot of quiet from a lot of defenders in this game, quite frankly. And Jair outside of the pick, had a very tough game. Obviously gives up the big touchdown, gave up a couple other completions. Certainly a roller coaster there. Came up with a pass breakup later, almost another pick, but some good, some bad. But the bad was bad. I mean, that big touchdown he gave up was pretty ugly looking. So some of when your big stars don't play well, no, that's not great. Matt LaFleur on Jordan Love status. I don't know. That's not encouraging. I don't know. Obviously it's not, message of, complete and utter effed, but Matt LaFleur had to answer 2 different questions regarding Jordan Love's status with, I don't know. So you're not going to get much news about that tonight from Zach Jacobson. Okay. So we are not going to know tonight is what it seems like, unless we get like a breaking news from Adam Schefter or someone that says like the fear is that he has a such and such, and hopefully that's not the case. Yeah. We'll keep an eye on that, but it doesn't look like we're going to get anything tonight. Dag, the Packers are back, boys. Missed a field goal, can't score a touchdown after the defense gets 2 turnovers. We're back in regular season form. Again, we knew going in week 1 was going to be sloppy. It was sloppier than it should have been. There's no question about it. I'm not making excuses about it. I'm not saying that this was an acceptable performance, anything like that, but we knew week 1 was going to be not indicative and not the complete picture of what this team will look like long-term. They'll get a lot of that stuff cleaned up. It always happens that way. And as long as they're playing their best football towards the end of the year, you're not as concerned about week 1, but this was ugly. They could have won. As they were in third quarter, and they were up by 2 at one point in the third quarter, if I remember correctly. My ESPN browser is not working here. They were up 26-24 in the third with 11:55 left. So 26-24. That was the last time that they were winning. And I had already thought at that point of like, even if this team wins, that was ugly. Like, it just wasn't a good enough performance. So again, this is where, for me, wins and losses, right? I care less about the wins and the loss on this one. And again, it can affect them down the road. I get it, but I care more about the standard on the field and how they performed overall. Clearly the biggest thing, Jordan Love. And that's the scariest thing of everything. But after that, it is what you ultimately do on the field. And the play on the field was just not good enough. And you can say like all the stuff, but like you could see Philly later on, and you could see Saquon Barkley and Devontae Smith and AJ Brown and all those guys. And they dictated to Green Bay's defense. No question about it. Now, Green Bay dictated to them too on offense. They just didn't execute when they really needed to in the red zone and just missed some key plays, had some bad turnovers. Josh Jacobs almost had a fumble too, or did have a fumble, but Bo Melton, one of the plays of the game, was just falling on that fumble. But yeah, that's where we're at right now. Emmanuel Wilson is that dude. Super exciting. Yeah, I would almost like to have seen a little bit more, although Josh Jacobs obviously got going in a really good way later in the game. But that was a good performance from Emmanuel Wilson when he got the opportunity to get in there and actually show what he's capable of in a regular season game. Very good initial results from him, and I think he's earned himself more playing time. It's going to take probably a little bit now for Marshawn Lloyd to completely unseat Emmanuel Wilson from that number 2 running back spot. He looked really good when given the opportunity. Got bronchitis today. Now this, give me any reason to not drink myself to sleep. Well, it's late enough that hopefully you can just fall asleep, John. Maybe just one small drink, And I don't know, it probably doesn't help the bronchitis all that much. So maybe just some cough medicine that has a little tiny bit of alcohol in it or something, but I hope you feel better, John. Daniel Penny loves health. Is this game another typical 0-1 start that has no impact on the rest of the season? Yeah. I'm not outside of the love thing. I'm not concerned about anything. Like, again, this team showed signs on offense, particularly, and defense, they'll get some of that stuff cleaned up. I don't know that I feel, how I wanted to feel coming out of this game. No two ways about it. I would have rather have lost this game, 17-13 and felt better about the play on the field than, kind of lose like this. But defense has got a ways to go. You can tell that. They'll have easier opponents coming up. You can also tell that. But that was a disappointing performance from the defense. They did not go out and execute. And then, of course, the big thing right now is just Jordan Love's health. Here we go. What is this? Oh, okay. Around the NFL, Tom Pelissero retweeted it, but no major update there. It doesn't seem like we're going to really get much of an update here. Yeah, brutal. All right. Athletes, Musgrave, Watson, Walker are non-factors. There's some other athletes in this game that played pretty well, though, too. But, the wide receiver thing with Christian, let's start there. They're going to, first of all, he had a really nice touchdown. That was a big time play in this game. Second thing is, we're going to go through this season and there's going to be different receivers that have different big games. Today was Jaden Reed. Next week, again, assuming everything's okay with Jordan, it can be other receivers in other given weeks, and Christian will have his games as well. So that I'm not concerned about. You can tell, and I kind of told you guys not to kind of beat the drum here, but I told you Tucker Kraft, tight end 1. It's not been a mistake. I've been saying it for a while now. He's tight end 1. Musgrave is tight end 2. Musgrave will still have a big impact on this season, again, assuming QB1. And then, Quay had some big plays, or at least some good plays, a couple plays into the backfield where you just kind of let him use his athleticism a little bit more. But there were definitely some plays where the play where he got juked in the hole by Saquon, obviously very ugly play. And there's going to certainly be some plays that he wants back. Do you want more out of those 3 players? Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. But again, I'm not going to define them based off of one game today. And there's a lot of season left. And I think all 3 of those players will have big impacts through the course of the year. Matthew, is that how our last international game ended? Quarterback hurt on a Hail Mary drive trying to make something happen. Was that the case, Matthew? You might be right. You might be onto something there. But Aaron continued to play after that, right? I'd have to think back on it. I think he did get banged up on that play. What was that, 2022? Sorry, that was 2022. And then you had Giants play-by-play. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers was sacked and fumbled on the final play of that game. So, yeah, I think you're right. But he came back and then played, against the Jets the next week. So hopefully if we're repeating, scenarios here, hopefully that's a good sign that Jordan Love will play next week. Obviously, hoping and searching for anything at this point. 50 million shoving Love a cramps banana. It has nothing to do with his contract. It has nothing to do. He cramped up. Probably could have maybe drank more water, but stayed a little bit more hydrated. My guess. I don't ever recall Jordan being cramped in any game that he's ever played in before. It was not, again, crazy temperatures or anything. So I think it's just one of those fluke things. It's the first game of the year. I don't know. To me, the two things are not combined here. But disappointing that there was some of the cramping going on, and just another thing that just did not go right in this game for Green Bay. Jonathan, thoughts on the kickoff? I feel like Nixon's talents have been legislated out of the game, but on that note, he houses that pick. Got to catch that. That would have been a nice play for him to come up with. No question about it. Obviously, Jair comes up with the pick after that, but that would have been a nice play to come up with. That could have definitely changed the outcome of the game. And the kickoff is very, very clear. They're going to have to change the yard marker. The 30 is not a big enough punitive or just a big enough penalty in order to get teams to actually kick the ball off. So if you want returns, which is what the NFL said that they wanted, you got to get that thing to the 35 or the 40 even. Otherwise, you might as well just go back to the last way because you haven't changed the game in a positive to actually be more returns in this sort of situation. Fenrir, they can't blame Joe Barry on defense anymore. They cannot blame Joe Barry. This is a totally different scheme. But again, I will say this, let's not judge it based on one game. Oh, God. Oh, no. Oh, that knee definitely pops. Hold on. I'll back it up. Oh, right there. Oh, that's tough to watch. All right. Well, there's that. Again, not jumping to any conclusions, not a doctor. Don't know what that means. That does not look good. The vibe was off all night. They seemed really out of shape. I don't think they looked out of shape. I disagree with that. There was definitely, again, this is the first game. They didn't play preseason. It takes a little bit of time to get in football shape. I don't think they looked out of shape. Did they look in top tier physical condition for game one? No. Did Eagles? No, they didn't either. Are a lot of teams going to be that same way this week? Yes. And it was in Brazil. They traveled. You had not only the flight, but you had a 2-hour bus ride that all of this is going to be irrelevant. I know everyone wants to jump to conclusions on how this game went. That piece of it is all going to be a moot point, probably mostly due to the fact that now we have to very much worry about Jordan Love's injury. But yeah, I'm not concerned about that. The vibes being off. Oh, there's certainly moments where the vibes seem good. You had the Xavier McKinney pick early in the game. You had the fumble right away. You had opportunities to go score. Defense, gets turnovers on its first 2 drives. You've got massive Jaden Reed plays to go up and have the opportunity to, take the lead at those given points. So there's definitely moments in this game, but there was definitely a lot of times that it just did not seem to be going Green Bay's way. Which front performances was more concerning tonight? The O-line. I actually thought there was I actually have no concern about the O-line. That was actually one of the best first weeks that I've seen from the O-line overall. That defensive front from Philly is no joke. They gave Jordan a lot of time to throw throughout the course of the night, and the run blocking got way better as the course of the game went along. I'm not going to judge anything until I go watch the All-22, but I have zero concern about the O-line. In fact, I think overall, solid game for the most part. Again, not going to be perfect, but for a week one, I was mostly pleased with the O-line. D-line, more concerned. But again, you have to understand they're playing a lot of contain in that game. When they got a little bit more, ability to go after the quarterback, especially on the interior, saw a little bit more pressure. But I would say D-line was a little bit more concerning to me in this one than the O-line was. Does Love's performance concern you? No. His injury concerns me. The performance doesn't. He's like, this is not going to be, I know he's highest paid quarterback. I know expectations now go through the roof. It's not going to be perfect. There's going to be days like this. He made some big throws. He's going to want a lot back from this game. No questions about it. And now just the hope is that this is not a Malik Willis season moving forward. Thank you so much for calling. Thank you all for the super chats as well. Super, super kind of you. Really means a ton. We've got a lot to go through here. Sorry that I'm not able to get to the rest of the chat. I'm not seeing anything in the chat right now other than I'm just on the side here going through super chats because there are so many. So I do very much appreciate that a ton. Going to the home opener next week, going to suck driving 10 hours to watch Malik Willis. I hope and pray I'm wrong. Jason, I hope and pray you are wrong as well. Just kind of hoping for a miracle at this point. Would not be something new. We've seen Reggie White get the miracle before in Green Bay a little bit with an injury. So and obviously Aaron Rodgers carted off first half of a game against Chicago and comes back out in the second half and leads the victory. So hopefully, fingers crossed, not as bad as it looks. We'll have to kind of wait and see. Really liked how Wilson ran tonight, running back 2 lock. I mean, Marshawn Lloyd's still going to have a big say in this as the rest of the season goes along, but that was a great performance from Wilson in a very small sample size. But hey, you can only do with the snaps that you get, and he did really, really well in the snaps that he got. If Love is out, do we tank or get a vet? I mean, Ryan Tannehill would probably be an option at that point. Yeah, my guess is Ryan Tannehill would probably be an option at that point. I don't think anything else really makes sense. I don't think they're going to probably trade for anyone else. We can test that Tom Brady. Can he be a player or not, or as a part owner? But no, in all likelihood, it's Malik Willis probably next week. And if it is a season ender, they would probably take a look at Ryan Tannehill. But I don't know if they would go in that direction or not. So Matt LaFleur, there's a lot to clean up. Definitely a sloppy game from us. There was some uncharacteristic things that we did as a staff, quite frankly, and that trickled down to our players. We have to look hard at ourselves in the mirror because tonight wasn't good enough. All right. I agree. Sebastian Coronado Casada. It sucks how the game ended. At least glad we had a game in South America and hopefully someday in Argentina. Just praying J Love is all right. Well, first of all, thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it, Sebastian. Just praying Love is all right as well. That's obviously going to be the theme of the night. It's just going to be a damper on everything, right? And I wish I could tell you this is what it is. We can play out all sides, right? We can say, all right, if he's back next week, that'd be pretty incredible, pretty amazing. The good news is they have a couple days extra. The bad news is got a freaking 10-hour plane ride or whatever it is, 11-hour plane ride all the way home. That's not ideal. But the good news is you get a couple extra days of rest. So if it is something, maybe that gives him a little bit more time. That would be on the insanely optimistic side. If he misses a short-term period of time, you're looking at Malik Willis as the starter in a group of what should be, you say winnable games. Obviously, when you've got a backup quarterback that has no familiarity with the offense, that becomes a bit more of a question mark. But Colts, Titans, Vikings, then you got the Rams, but Cardinals. You've got a 5-game stretch here where maybe you can get a 2-3 result, but that means you're starting 2-4. That certainly puts you behind the 8 ball if that's in that sort of situation. And then if it's the year, then you have to decide, or if it's a long period of time, do you want Ryan Tannehill? Do you want Malik Willis? And what do you kind of do in that situation? Obviously not ideal in any of the situations. The absolute best case is he's probably a little bit banged up and you're going to have to, maybe, keep him, do a little bit more running and keep him in the pocket a little bit more in week 2. That's the insane best case scenario. Don't think that's going to be it. Probably real best case is that he's out for, 8, I won't say that, but maybe like 4 to 8 weeks. And you get him back at some point and you can stay afloat until then. And then the absolute worst, of course, is just season ending and your season's done. They can do a lot with this team to continue to develop the young talent. That will be the goal for the rest of the year if it ends up being that. From Malik Willis to Emmanuel Wilson, Marshawn Lloyd, all the wide receivers, Musgrave, Kraft, Rasheed Walker, Zach Tom, Jordan Morgan, Jacob Monk, the young edge rushers, the young defensive tackles, Edgerrin Cooper, Tyron Hopper, the young corners, the young safeties. They can continue to mold and develop all the young players so that, and again, we're just talking worst case. We're just going through all the scenarios here. So I'm not saying anything's a foregone conclusion, but if that's the end scenario, that's the goal is to develop these players the rest of the way. And again, you will have to make the decision of, are you good with Malik Willis or do you want to try to get a Ryan Tannehill in and do something like that? Not sure that there's a perfect answer there. I'm not sure that Ryan Tannehill just doesn't get you into purgatory, meaning, yeah, it's probably a more fun season, but your ceiling is probably like 9-8 in a first round playoff exit, something like that. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see and just hope like hell it doesn't come to that. Colin Love was not in rhythm or setting his feet all night. Do you think it's just rust or him trying to do too much? O-line was spotty at best also. There's a lot going on with Jordan. I think, first of all, I think some of the fundamentals were not good. We've sort of known that from Jordan. You maybe wish it was a little bit better coming out in week 1 this year. You looked early in the game and he was trying to plant on some stuff and the footwork wasn't there because of the grass being slippery. So I wonder if almost like instead of like planting and wondering if he's going to like twist something or slip, if he almost played a little bit more off his back foot and just tried to use his arm a little bit more. I could see that. Plus he was cramping. So maybe he didn't feel comfortable like planting on that back foot. It it was never quite there. And then of course ends in unmitigated disaster. So just wasn't in rhythm. I think that's all it is. I would have had no concern going into week 2 had it not been overall for the injury. Impression of Narveson after his first game. I mean, he looks like a capable kicker. Obviously he missed one though. And that to me, it's a zero-sum game when it comes to kicking. Everything else in my life, from football to everything else, I hate a zero-sum game. I hate I don't think it's ever black or white. I think there's always gray. I'm kind of to the point with kicking where you make it or you don't. And that's ultimately what you're judged on. And I'd have to go back and look at the snap and the hold and see if everything was good. He hit it off the post. It looked like he was maybe trying to get a little bit of a curve on it. Just didn't curve at the end. I don't have any long-term concern. I think overall he struck the ball well, but again, you got to make your kicks, and he missed a pretty big one in this one. If the run defense is going to be garbage, you might as well play Cooper and Hopper than give McDuffie. New coordinator, no new results in that facet. Yeah, I thought McDuffie at first glance had a really tough game. Thought he had a really tough game. And we did see Edgerrin Cooper get more playing time towards the end. Don't know if that was because of the struggles or if that was just in the game plan or whatever, but I do think it's probably a matter of time before they get maybe Edgerrin in there a little bit more. Maybe not this week, next week, the following week. Maybe it takes until week 8. I don't know. But I think at some point the goal has to be to get Cooper in there next to Quay and hope that is maybe a little bit more of a dynamic linebacking core. You hope that McDuffie just had an off game and he can play better moving forward too. But first glance, and we'll see what all 22 says, but first glance, it looked like a tough game from Isaiah. Missed tackles, not enough points off turnovers. Yeah, we can go on and on, Johnny. We can go on and on and on. Just checking again, making sure I didn't miss anything here. Yeah, nothing. So they're trading for a legit number 1 pass rusher, right? This defense doesn't work unless they get pressure up front. Not sure Gary is the guy. We said this already, John, but just know a lot of this was contain. A lot of contain, trying to keep Jalen Hurts in the pocket, making sure that he couldn't get outside and run. And for the most part, I think they did that, right? What do we have? 13 carries for 33 yards for Hurts with a long of 8 yards. So they chose, they decided they wanted Jalen Hurts to beat them with his arm. That was the sort of goal going in. I think they would have ideally liked to have done a better job against Saquon, and they didn't. 24 for 109 and 2 touchdowns for Saquon. That wasn't good enough, but they did do a good job of containing Hurts in the pocket. And I think that's why you maybe didn't see as big of a performance from maybe some of those pass rushers. Not to mention as well, again, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, 2 of the best offensive tackles in all of football. I know he's been hurt, but how long until Edgerrin Cooper gets into the starting lineup? It looked like he flashed when he was in there. And we just kind of talked about that a little bit, Patrick, but I think this is definitely somebody that they want to get more playing time over time. Maybe take a little bit. I'm sure there's probably some things that he has from a learning curve standpoint to kind of get under his belt, but we know a lot of these guys got to get on the field in order to learn and make their mistakes and get better. And I think, the way, again, McDuffie played in this game was not great again at first glance. And the goal is clearly going to be to get Cooper in there when they have the opportunity. So that's going to come. It just is a matter of when, not if. Fenrir, thanks again. Why did we use all those timeouts so early? Could have come in clutch at the end. What the heck? Not exactly. All of those were done in the first half. All the wasted timeouts were in the first half. So maybe they could have helped. But it was Philly that had the 2-minute drill at the end, right? If I remember correctly, I'm almost positive. Cause yeah, they doubled up. So they went on the 15 play, 57 yard, 5-minute, 11 second. So no, the missed timeouts didn't cost them at all. They used all of their timeouts in the second half to stop the clock, to try to get the ball back. So no, the timeouts early did not affect them. You can't carry them over into the second half. You get 3 in the first half, 3 in the second. The 3 in the first half did not cost them any sort of 2-minute drive or anything like that. So that ended up not costing them. And they did have all 3 of their timeouts when they were trying to stop Philly at the end. Dan, thanks, buddy. Love seems like such a scramble drill most of the time. Feet unsettled, out of control, and pulling, but it's uncomfortable. I think I know what you're saying here, and kind of went over this a little bit. Again, he's cramping. The conditions were poor. Again, does have a propensity to play off platform anyway. Not the way that you necessarily want to see it. And he missed too many throws in this game, so not excusing it. But I think some of those factors definitely could have played a little bit of a part in this one. Missed the dominant O-line teams. I'm on green years. I don't know, guys. I'm very interested to go back and watch this, but I didn't think the O-line had a bad game in this one, especially for week one. Those groups usually take a little bit longer time to gel. There was the one where Jordan Morgan got pushed back into the quarterback. Sean Ryan had one too, if I remember correctly. There was certainly the holding penalties by Rashid, although one of those looked like a phantom call as well. But yeah, at first glance, I didn't think they had a bag. It started not great, no question about that. But I thought they really settled in and got better as the course of the game went along, especially in run blocking. Pro Football Doc just analyzed video, said mild high ankle sprain, potential to play with limited mobility. All right, there we go. I will take it. I hope he's right. And that is our first sign of good luck. But I will just say Pro Football Doc has definitely been wrong in the past, but I'm hoping that this is one that he's shooting 100% on. That would be very, very nice. Say what you want about preseason, but the Chiefs play their guys and are back-to-back champs. Plus, they didn't look as sloppy last night as Green Bay did tonight. Seems obvious to me what the right answer is. Tyler, I did echo those sentiments in I think it was after week one of preseason when the Chiefs were playing their starters, saying, hey, if the defending back-to-back champs are playing their guys in preseason, you just follow the blueprint, right? I think that's the answer. If they feel comfortable enough that, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to try. Listen, KC knows the value of those wins. And I know maybe I've been trying to devalue like week one and say, hey, it's not going to be an indicator. I still believe it's not going to be an indicator of their long-term success in this season, but those wins matter, especially if you're trying to get the 1 seed in KC is trying to get the 1 seed every year. And they know how important those early games are to make sure that you're padding your stats to get to that number 1 seed in the playoffs. So if KC is doing it, Tyler, I said it right after the first preseason game. If KC is doing it, that's what I would do. I would probably play it a little bit more. I will stand by my fact of I trust the coach, and I don't think there's a perfect answer. But if the best team in the league with the most valuable player in the league is willing to go out there and play a little bit more in preseason, I would probably tend to follow that blueprint a little bit more. But it's a tough conversation either way. It's a tough decision either way. Hopefully not, Johnny. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. Jen, member for 11 months. Thanks so much for that. Think a sprain, trust someone who blew out a knee. All right, Jen, I hope you are right. You are my second sign of good hope. And I trust you more than anyone in the world. So I'm going to trust you, Jen, that it is just a sprain. That's the Tom Brady rule on the play where Love got hurt. How did Tolbert's crew not call roughing the passer? They seem to call everything else. I mean, that's a chaotic play. Again, I'm not making excuses here for anything, but that's a chaotic play. You know, he's tossing the ball backwards. You're trying to keep an eye on everything. By the time the ball's out, that's when I think the leg thing happened. It's a bizarre play. I don't think the Eagles player was trying to do anything dirty. I think it's just a victim of circumstance. I don't know. Maybe I'm too trusting of people, but an awful result one way or the other. Adam, we never seem to show out for our international game. Well, there's only been 2. That being said, we had our downs last season and look where we ended up. Thanks, Andy. Adam, you are more than welcome. But yeah, I'm okay for no internationals for a little while. I know it's great for the fans internationally, but I'm okay for a little bit if there's not a Packers international game for a hot second. Pro Football Doc says high ankle sprain. I hope he is right. Video circulating X Jordan knee seems to pop. Buckle up. Might be bad. Heartbroken. And we're going back and forth here. Wesley Sipes, I see a lot of negativity, but I thought it was a solid first game besides all the penalties and lack of red zone touchdowns. That was a bogus holding call on Jair at the end. That was a dagger to the defense. Wesley, I love that you have the optimism. I think it's good that we have some of that as well. There are some things that I am excited to go back and watch the tape on. No question about it. I thought, again, Jaden Reed stepped up big. I thought there was some good play from the offensive line. I thought we saw Josh Jacobs get better as the game went along. Emmanuel Wilson had a really nice game. Javon Bullard, I thought, flashed early. I think there were some mistakes a little bit as the game went along. Obviously, McKinney had the big plays early. So there's definitely some positives in this one, but a lot to clean up as well. Dan Coleman loves feet, looked wrong, way too many plays. He didn't look ready. Yeah, again, we've talked about this on a few different occasions, but again, I think the field conditions and just maybe the cramping had a little bit to do with that as well. Maybe those are excuses, quite possible. We know that Jordan has not exactly been a picture of fundamentals when it's come to footwork. Definitely something he needs to clean up overall, but we'll see if that was just a one-off, or hopefully we get to see if that was a one-off, and hopefully next week or in the near future, we get to see him play again and maybe clean up a little bit of that. We know Tom Clements will be all over him for it. No question about it. Felt like a lot of Wick's chances to make a play were weird, but he had some drops for sure. Very surprising. Yeah, I felt like a couple of them were behind him and he slipped on the one. Just again, it was just that kind of day. It was just that kind of day. It was not Green Bay's night in Brazil. There'll be days like that. Clean it up, pray and hope that Jordan's okay, that it's not anything long-term, and hope that you can get a better result against the Colts next week, get back on track and start making up for some of those mistakes that you made in this game. Hopefully they got a lot of the mistakes out of their system and can just kind of clean it up moving forward. From Doc, looks like patella dislocated laterally. Shin bone itself doesn't seem to move. He was walking around after, so hopefully ACL is spared. Ankle gets rolled in a high ankle sprain mechanism. All right. Sign me up for that. I think sign me up for that. That seems like non-ACL. That seems better than anything else. So we'll see. Can Ed Policy just say no to the next international game? Unfortunately, he cannot. That is not the Packers' choice. I don't think they would have chose to go to Brazil week 1 if it was their choice. But no, he cannot. All right. I don't even know if I want to see the entirety of the chat. Yeah, that was. I'm sure there's a lot of interesting comments, but I appreciate you guys being here. Just seeing if anything else here. Steven said he watched There Is No Recoil. I hope that's true. There was no pop. Looked at every tackle slow-mo and always looks worse. All right. We'll see. The secret is get Andy Reid. What else we got? Tank for Travis Hunter. I watched some Travis Hunter today. You guys saw it. I posted it on Twitter. I watched some Travis Hunter today. He's a hell of a player. Yeah, that's another one we have to kind of figure out as well. We don't know. I'm assuming he didn't come back in the game. I'd have to go back and look. We'll see on the All-22. But yeah, that's another interesting one. Does anybody know? Post in chat. Does anyone know? I'm assuming it was Jacob Monk who came in and played center, but I was so focused on Love and just the play, I didn't even look. And did Myers come back at all? Because there's the incomplete pass, and then there was another play after that. I don't think Myers came back in, but if anyone knows, let me know. Thought the defense looked good to start, but offensive drives too short and kept packed defense on the field. Yeah, I mean, listen, you got to get off the field one way or the other. It was an unacceptable performance from the defense. It's week 1. Again, certainly some level of accident forgiveness for a new defense, new defensive coordinator. It's not all going to be based on this one game, but the defense did not play well. I'll just put it that way. We can put some baked in, like, I don't want to say excuses, but we can understand that there was some extenuating circumstances here. The offense didn't do them some favors, but that was not an acceptable performance from the defense. No two ways around it. First thoughts on Stokes. I thought he looked decent. Yeah, I thought that was a solid performance from Stokes. I'm excited to watch all 22 on him, but I overall came away that I thought that looked like a good performance from him. So that could have, I thought, been a tough matchup, but I thought Stokes, who had maybe the most consistent day in the secondary of anyone, at least at first glance. We'll see if that stays true when we watch the All-22. All right, so bro, the defense has 2 turnovers in the first quarter and kept them in the game for a final drive. I don't know. They allowed 34. Again, there's good things from this defense, but I'm looking at, again, I'm not looking at necessarily even the results of the game. I'm looking at process. The Eagles dictated to them far more than they dictated to the Eagles. They couldn't get stops when they needed to. They allowed 34 points, which is definitely not advantageous. Yes, they got some turnovers, but one of those turnovers was an absolute gift. They did nothing to earn that one. Yeah, to me, I don't know. That's certainly not good enough defense. I would have a hard time arguing of like, yeah, and you guys know, like even at halftime, right? If you saw my halftime tweet, I said, listen, you have to like look at the totality of it. They allowed 17 points at half, but they got 6 points on their own. That was a net 11-point performance in the first half. I was mostly okay with it in the first half, but you got to get stops at some point. And in the second half, the missed tackles and the inability to get stops, the big plays given up by Jair, just not a good enough performance on defense. Which Packers do you think had the best game just from first watch gut feeling? Emmanuel Wilson, Jaden Reed. It looked like Zach Tom had a good game at first glance. Xavier McKinney, obviously, I want to look a little bit more at what the rest of his game brought, but certainly some big plays early in the game. We just talked about Eric Stokes. Yeah, those are kind of some ones that stood out at first glance. But we'll see if it kind of holds up again when we get to the All-22. Can you ask Astronomy Shane what this game means for the Packers season? Jay, that's funny, but be nice. Be nice. We've got Creeley Galansky as a new member. Thank you so much for signing up, Creeley. Appreciate that. Appreciate you guys even in shitty circumstances. Still coming in with all the super chats. Still coming in with all the great questions. And still coming in with the new memberships. Really, really appreciate that. It looks like nothing on the love front. First live chat I've been able to catch. We beat ourselves. Sloppy. Hope Love's best he can be for what happened. I'm with you 100% on that, Dismay. Glad you could make it. Thoughts on McKinney so far? I thought overall looked good to start the game. This is one where safety play is really hard to judge in real time. You kind of have to go back and watch the all 22 for safety play unless they're in the box. So I'm going to have to watch him and Bullard a little bit closer. Thought some of the stuff I saw early was really good. Saw some mistakes from Bullard, at least what looked like mistakes a little bit later. But I thought McKinney overall certainly looked the part, especially early on. Johnny W. just became a new YouTube member. Thank you so much for that, Johnny. Quay got put in a body bag by Barkley on that touchdown. Yeah, that was a rough play for Quay. Rough play for Quay. A couple plays like that made some solid plays as well. Just this defense needs to still play a more physical attacking brand of football that involves, actually getting the quarterback to the ground on a quarterback run and, actually makes the tackle at the point of attack. There's just far too many missed tackles and flybys and just not disciplined football. I'm trying to decide if I should buy a 23 or 10 jersey in the new cool black jersey they're selling at the pro shop. I already have both of their jerseys. Which one would you get? Well, 10 is going to be here longer, so I would probably go that route. But hopefully he's good to play the rest of the season, and then that's an easy decision. If you want it to be for this season, then maybe wait till that Love injury gets announced and then make your decision from there. Man, what a game from Reed and flashes from Cooper. Yeah, Jaden Reed was phenomenal. Did have one drop, right? I think he had that one drop, and was it like a third down or something that would have made it at least a slightly, or maybe like a decision on fourth down, but overall phenomenal game from Jaden Reed. All right, Jason, I think the field had a lot to do with the defense being sloppy. Looked like it slowed. Both defenses were being slow. It's another one of those things where, you know what? Both teams had to play through that, and you got to find a way to get the job done. I thought the offenses, they weren't able to cut as easily either. You saw the quarterback struggle to plant at times. You saw Saquon stumble in the backfield on his first run of the season. It plays that way for the offense too. And at some point, hey, they're going to play games in the snow. They're going to play games in the rain. They're going to play games in all different conditions on all different types of fields. They'll play on field turf. They'll play in domes. They'll play outside. You got to go win a game. You got to get the job done. You got to win a game. And all of those to some extent are excuses, because it'd be one thing if yeah, man, the Eagles get to play on a perfect surface and the Packers have to play on that crap. No, they both played on the same field. Still got to get the job done. Darcy, Mike Quick said on your show a couple days ago, the first weeks of the regular season are the new preseason. Seemed like it for both teams. No, thanks as always for your calm, long-term perspective. Absolutely, Darcy. We talked about it. I don't know how many times before the game. This is the new preseason. This is not, again, indicative of what you're going to be as a team at the end of the year. You still want to pick up wins. They still had opportunities. They needed to execute a lot better. And yeah, I think that's the thing that you kind of need to take away from it. But they'll learn from this game. The Eagles are a tough team too. They're a very, very talented football team. It's not an easy matchup in week one, but too many mistakes, and it needs to be better moving forward. But it will be. This is going to be the worst that I think. Arguably, assuming, again, number 10 would be okay. I think this is probably maybe one of the worst games that the offense and defense play all year long. At least, knock on wood, hopefully that's the case. Drafts in Green Bay in 2025. That is true. Any chance we win any games with Malik Willis? Yeah, there's always a chance. There's always hope. There's always a fool's hope, if nothing else. But, it's going to be, this is of all the times to have an injury, of course, this is the worst because, let's play this out. Let's say it's a 4-week injury. Okay. Let's just say it's a 4-week injury. A 4-week injury where Malik Willis knows the offense from weeks 8 to 12 or something is a lot better than Malik just got to town, is just a brand new member of this team. So he's already behind the 8 ball, and that's already not a situation you want yourself in. It's even worse, the fact that he's going to be 2 weeks into the offense if he needs to play next week. And to the point where I could see a world in which maybe you see some Willis and some Clifford next week if Love, in fact, could not go. I could see them having certain situations where Clifford is the guy. I could see them having certain situations where Malik is the guy, which is clearly not a situation that you want to be in at all. So, yes, I do think there's ways that you can win with Malik Willis. I really, really do. That you got to tailor the offense to him. I think Matt will do a tremendous job in doing that. But this is the worst time to have it happen as he just gets in town to Green Bay and is still learning the playbook. Oh, look at this. All right. He's not on crutches, not being helped, no limp. He's okay, breath. All right. No Carson Wentz. All right. Anything else? Did we see anything else from it? I didn't know if there was like an announcement or something and everyone else was going to tweet too. But all right, doesn't look like there's anything else. But it's a good sign. But again, you never quite know for sure. All right, did I miss a super chat in there? Nope, I don't think so. All right, I think I got to all of those. All right, I'm probably going to head out here, guys, pretty quick. We do have 2,000 people in chat, though, so not like super urgent here to get out of here if you guys want to keep chatting. Uncultured Barbarian. I've never been a fan of international games. NFL games should not be played on soccer pitches. It wasn't. It was not played on a soccer pitch. This was a football field that they made specifically for this game that was made or that was put together and done in concert with both the Eagles and the Packers using the exact same turf that the Packers and the Eagles use at their individual stadiums. The field overall for international games, the field looked like it was in great shape. It was just moisture. It was just wet and slippery. That has nothing to do with the actual field itself. The field itself looked like it was in great condition. There was no holes. There was no any of that. It was just slick. And that's not like the type of grass that you get or anything like that. And I'm not going to pretend like I am a grass expert, but from everything that I have seen on it, this was a pitch that was specifically set up for an NFL game done in conjunction with the Eagles and the Packers. It looked like it was in great condition. So I understand maybe not being a fan of international games, but this was not a soccer pitch at all. Yeah, 88% humidity, I think, was probably what did it more than the actual field itself. No, look at the field. The field looked awesome. It was just slippery. You don't slip from the field being bad. Like the field being bad is like the guys are like getting their foot caught in like a hole, or the field is just in a condition where you see like you've seen it where like the field is like peeling up in different places because they just put the sod down. The field looked amazing. There was nothing on the field whatsoever that I would look at it and be like, oh my God, look at the state of that field. It looked awesome. It was just slick. That's not the condition of the grass itself. All right. Let's see. Did we hear who had the most fans at the game? The crowd didn't seem too loud, but hard to tell on TV. We don't know. Or at least I don't know. Just arriving, Rashid made me lose my voice. A couple penalties. Again, one looked like it was a little bit of a phantom call, but I'm interested to watch Rashid in this one as we get into the all 22. I'm so sad. First game of the year, gut punch. It was absolutely that. No questions about it. Hopefully we got the worst one out of the way. MG's got one word, RELAX. You've got 5 letters there, my friend. I feel like this is the first time I've seen Love look a little shook. I think he looked shook. I just think he didn't look comfortable. Just never looked in rhythm. Never looked comfortable through the course of the game. You hang with him. Every quarterback's gone through that. No long-term concern with the player. We'll see what the injury brings, but he's going to be totally fine. It was just somebody in chat that said it. Maybe somebody can confirm it, but I just read that from somebody who wrote it in chat. Let's see. They wanted the field yesterday. It's dry. They watered the field yesterday. It's dry here in Brazil. Yeah. I think they watered. I just think there was the humidity probably had a lot to do with it, honestly. Mike, maybe before I die, we will have a good defense. Is it players or coaches that we can't have a good defense? Let's go back and look at this one. I will say, to me, there was a little bit of both. I didn't love the game plan here from half. I didn't love the execution from the defense. It's a little bit of both. Ja was very lazy on the big touchdown that he gave up. Jeff Halfley can't tackle that's not his job. It's not Joe Barry's job. It's not Mike Pettine's job. It's not Tom Capers' job. The players have to go out and tackle. You give up 100 extra yards because you can't tackle at point of attack. It's going to be a problem, especially if you want to play a more physical defense, more aggressive defense. Yeah, if you make that first guy miss, it's going to end up in a big gain almost every single time. We saw far too many of that. Got to tackle a lot better. Of course, John Nixon took the ball out. I'm not sure. Ja took the ball away once, and then, yeah, I don't think Nixon didn't have a pick. So no, it was McKinney and Ja. But no, maybe I'm missing something there. Jen says no crutches. Gameboy 36. Everyone needs to wait until we get official news because the amount of people who apparently have their medical doctorate is crazy. Can't wait for tomorrow's video. I'm going to get started on that in just a little bit. R. Smith 30. What's the record on penalties? Asking for a friend. Wasn't today, but it was not pretty. That's for sure. I don't think he was seeing ghosts. I just don't think he was in rhythm. Seeing ghosts is you drop your eyes and start looking at a pass rush that's not there. I don't think he was doing that. I think he just was not in rhythm. Never really set his feet. Never looked comfortable. And I think maybe the slick field had something to do with that. Again, maybe the cramping had something to do with that, but he never ever looked comfortable. Oh, gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah. So listen, the Nixon thing, we can talk about that really quick. It looks stupid, right? I will say this. The odds of, 20 some seconds left, no timeouts, going down the field and scoring a touchdown. Now, obviously they got themselves in a good position. That first play was awesome to Jaden Reed. And then, you got in Hail Mary range, but you just couldn't because, Jordan went out and then everything just got messed up from there. But they did. But the odds that you actually go down and score a touchdown in that scenario are none. So you give the maybe best kick returner in football an opportunity on a play that the opposing team hasn't really had a ton of opportunity to practice yet because it's still brand new to the league. It's not the right decision more often than not. I just thought, hey, I kind of understand it, and it will kind of give that guy an opportunity to maybe go make a play. He didn't. It ends up being a worse play. You lose like 9 seconds and 15 yards, which is a really bad situation at that point. But I don't necessarily hate the decision. And if you told me that the Packers either won on a 70-yard drive in 25 seconds with no timeouts or a kick return for a touchdown, I think the more likely might have been a kick return for a touchdown. Neither are great. I don't like my odds either way, but I can at least understand maybe what he was thinking in that situation. Now, if they told him specifically, do not return the ball, and he did, then I have more of an issue with it. But if they didn't give him that command, then I don't necessarily mind it. Yeah, there we go, Techwin. Do you know if Love is okay? Very scary. Chris, I wish I knew if Love was okay. I wish I knew. Cooper earned more playing time. The offense needs to bail out the defense, and we need to cut down on hurting ourselves. All those things will come with time. Again, hopefully with QB1 still in there, but this team will continue to improve. I don't have any long-term concern about the long-term play of this team. They're going to be totally fine. There's a lot of really good things in this game from a scheme standpoint and from how they were trying to do things. Just the execution was crappy. So Josh Jacobs on Jordan Love. We don't know the severity of his injury, but hopefully he's okay. That's from Josh Jacobs. All right. Creeley says, don't hate the decision either. Just fits their personalities and it's funny. Can understand that. Could national guys like Rappaport hear things before Domovsky? I feel like we could hear something overnight. Usually in that situation, it's if they get a feel for like they did the, initial MCL test and it came back positive or something, or like the internal fear, like you will see like all of a sudden, like the internal fear is that, Jordan Love did blah, blah, blah. Or the feeling within the building is that the Packers have avoided a major issue, but further testing will be done tomorrow to confirm. Like those are usually the things, but it's not necessarily a guarantee, right? Look at, to an extent, JJ McCarthy, right? Like McCarthy, they had knee soreness. He sat out of practice, and then he was scheduled for more testing the next day, and they determined he was going to have surgery. And then that surgery would depend if he was going to be out for the year, if it was going to be a short-term thing. It ended up being out for the year. So, it can look okay, or just knee soreness on one day, and then the next day you're out for the year. And these things are very, very tricky. There's no cut and dry, but maybe we could hear something, but doesn't seem like we're going to get anything definitive by the end of the night tonight. All right. We also just got another false start called on us on the way to the hotel. It happened. Eagles are a playoff team. I would agree with that, Johnny. Yeah, I don't think I would ever go on a subreddit game thread. Twitter is probably enough of what I can handle. Other Twitter doctors saying the kneecap popped out like Mahomes and he only missed 2 weeks. Well, I love those Twitter doctors. Sign me up for that if that would be the worst case scenario. Can you donate ligaments? I don't know. I don't think so. We will know how good we did when we see the result of the Atlanta Eagles game. Even that, that's not always a true indicator either. We'll see how good the Packers did when they play the rest of their season out, hopefully with Jordan Love as quarterback. I don't think Matt LaFleur has ever won a first of year game. Has he? Yeah, he's won a couple. He's won 2, I believe, last year, right? So in 2023, they beat Chicago 38-20. 2022, they lost to Minnesota. 2021, they lost to New Orleans, big. 2020, they beat Minnesota 43-34. And then in 2019, which was Matt's first year, they beat Chicago 10-3. So he's actually now 1-0, 2-0, 2-1, 2-2, 3-2, 3-3. It's actually 3-3 now in first games. So it's not actually as bad as it may seem. Just making sure I didn't. Yep, here we go. Willis is going to need to step up. Hopefully he doesn't. But if he does have to play, then yes, he's going to have to step up in a major way. I do have a lot of faith in Matt LaFleur to build an offense that would potentially work for Malik Willis. He's got a lot of talent, but that's obviously going to be an entirely different challenge at QB than having Jordan Love out there. There's a reason you pay that guy all that money. Why does Matt love to call running back screens on 3rd and long? It's never worked once. You're just playing the odds. You're trying to get, 3rd and 18s, 3rd and 19s, especially early in the game. Throwing down the field, more bad things are often going to happen than good things. So you're just playing the percentages, and maybe you get 15 yards and can go for it on 4th and 2. That's kind of the thinking there. A worst case scenario, you pick up 10 yards and it adds 10 yards to your punt. So you're not trying to win or lose the game in the first or second quarter. You're just trying to make sure that you don't have any major mistakes at that point in the game. Maybe you can catch the team off guard, execute a screenplay well, maybe get close enough to go for it, or maybe even pick up a first down and then kind of go from there. We've seen plenty of Joe Barry defenses give up some big plays on 3rd and 17. I'm not even going to, bring Joe Barry into this, but we've seen plenty of Packer defenses. I'll put it that way. Didn't like taking points off the board on that penalty on the PAT too early, regardless of outcome. Did you like the decision? It looks great if they make it. It looks dumb if they don't, right? You get the ball at the 1 yard line. This is one of those things as well, where I have less issue with the decision than I do with the execution. And the play call is okay. You just got to go and get it. You got to execute. You're 1 yard out, go get the point, the 2 points and put the points on the board. Now, Green Bay left too many points on the board, period, on offense. The 2 drives that they had, that they only get 6 points early, and then, taking 2 points or at least 1 point off the board there, missing the 3-point field goal. They lose by 5 points, right? If I remember correctly. Yeah, 5 points, and you get the field goal and the 2-point conversion, and you're tied. So it's not that easy, of course. It's not, there's a butterfly effect, I'm sure, after that, but there's 5 points just hanging out there, right there for you. Holding Colin Jair was brutal. So stupid. Had a feeling this one was coming. Grabbing his calf the whole game after missing a pass, humid and wet, cramp weather, or maybe much, much worse. Hopefully not much worse. Lots of bad calls today. Hopefully it's just, week 1 for the refs too. Hopefully Love is okay. I am right there with you. All right. Any final super chats? We're getting close to midnight here. The suck runs deep. Let's go to the best bar in Oshkosh. Oblio's. Got to get to Oblio's. Best bar in Oshkosh. My favorite. They did change it from when I was in college. Shocker. It's only been a hot second, but Oblio's was definitely my college bar growing up. Shame is unsubscribing from everything football. Packers need a tank for higher draft picks. How are you going to know if they're going to tank for draft picks if you're unsubscribing from everything football? You're going to have to pay attention to the tank if they're going to tank. You can't just let them tank and not be subscribed. It's one or the other, Shame. Figure it out. All kidding aside, doesn't it feel a lot like last year with Matt LaFleur? Lots of penalties, poor D, and then we put it together end of year. Yeah, it does. Not super shocked by this. Just was shocked with how bad, with how many mistakes there were. That's what was shocking to me. We already had the massive contact, bad knee thing happen right after with Bakhtiari. Lightning doesn't strike twice. I hope you are right. Reminds me of the Saints game. It wasn't quite as bad as the Saints game, at least from like a result standpoint. It was maybe as ugly as that at times, but not quite as bad and as ugly as that one. Andy, explain to me the international grounding non-call like I'm 5. So how it's supposed to be, and this makes sense, okay? I wish it was actually called this way more often. So I actually like this one. So if you're throwing and you're affected by the hit and like your arm just comes forward and it spikes into the ground, well, it's not intentional grounding because you may have been throwing down the field, but because you were hit, you go backwards and the ball spikes on the ground or it goes a lot shorter than you were expecting. So it wasn't an intentional grounding. You were throwing and you got hit. And because of the hit, the ball went nowhere. So you're at that point, you're taking the judgment out of it and saying, how the hell are we supposed to know if he was intentional grounding or not? The dude got obliterated or the dude got hit or his arm got hit. So how is he supposed to complete get the ball downfield or pass the line of scrimmage when he's hit on the play? And it makes sense. And I like it. I actually just wish it was called that way more often. There are too many times where a player will get hit and it'll go not to the line of scrimmage, affected by the hit, and they will still call intentional grounding. So I actually liked their interpretation of that based on the rule. I just wish it was more consistent. Yeah, I agree, Fred. They did get that one right by the rule of law for sure. I would think no news is good news. Don't we usually hear quickly after the ACL? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It's not. They're not all the same, unfortunately. How can I become a Hall of Fame member? Listening to you talk Packers is the highlight of my workday every day. You can go out on YouTube. So you go to youtube.com, you search the Pack a Day podcast. I don't know if I can see it as somebody that is actually on it. Let me go to my other account here. Oh, no, I can't. Yeah, I can do that. All right. So you go to youtube.com, you go to the Pack a Day podcast. And then you can see right under, if you go to the homepage, right under the main live post-game show that's going on right now with 1.8K people watching, right under that says our members. And then on the right of that, you can click join. And then there's my introduction. And then your 4 different tiers that you can pick up there. Hall of Famer is the bottom one that you can pick, but you can pick any of the 4 options and go from there. And you can click join. And then you're a Hall of Fame member. So that'd be great. But thank you for asking, Jay. And if anyone else is thinking of becoming a member, just go out to the main YouTube page. And then you can also go to the community site and just hit join at the top too. There's a lot of different ways, but just look for the join button over on the Pack a Day podcast YouTube page. All right. Is poor tackling ingrained in a player? Is good tackling something that can be taught and implemented? It can be taught and implemented, but it's tough at this level because they don't do any real tackling in any of the practices because they don't want anyone getting hurt. So yeah, you can get better at tackling and they'll work on it, but they're working on it with tackling dummies. It's a little bit different. I would be willing to bet you a big chunk of money that we will not see this Packers team tackle this poorly the rest of the year. That'd be my guess. But that was awful. That was an awful performance from a tackling standpoint. Absolutely atrocious. One of the worst tackling performances I've ever seen, sincerely. That was really, really bad. So they need to get that cleaned up, but it's going to be with tackling dummies. It's not going to be anything that is going to be live tackling at practice next week. So you just got to have to do the best that you can and hope that they individually get it cleaned up. All those guys know how to tackle. They all know how to tackle. They just have to go out and execute. Jill Brazier, thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. Deb, spare time and Oshkosh, you are winning. Is that something that I'm assuming that's a bar in Oshkosh, Deb's spare time, or is somebody in chat named Deb's spare time? That could be too. Jill Brazier, pretty sad after this game. Anything you can say to make me feel better? It's a long season, and that will either make you feel better or worse, dependent upon the status of Jordan Love. Matt Schneidman said Love walked out of the locker room on his own and didn't seem to have too bad of a limp. It's as good as we can ask for right now. But Jill, going back, first of all, I mean, the Love injury is going to dictate everything. There's no amount of copium and there's no amount of positivity that I could give you that if Jordan is somehow done for the year, I got nothing for you. The season's effectively done with, again, certain goals that you will still have and try to hit and try to get this team better so that when Jordan comes back next year, you're better. But any opportunity that you had to make any sort of serious run in the playoffs or anything like that is just over. So I can't give you any hope on that. If Jordan's out for a small period of time, 4 to 6 weeks or something, can they survive it? Yeah, absolutely. They can survive it. Matt's a really great offensive minded head coach. He can learn how to put enough points up with Malik Willis. The defense is just going to have to be light years better than they were today. And then if he's back next week, yeah, everything's still out there for this team. Absolutely. Everything is out there for this team still. So, yeah. And then Tyler has the best advice. Just eat Luigi's pizza. It's not a victory pizza. It's a coping pizza. We get our Luigi's coping pizza for the day. She said, Salty Joy said Schneidman didn't say anything. Am I missing something? I'm getting conflicting reports. I'm only going off of what's in chat here, guys. So I can't do anything more than that. All right. What is your opinion on Quay Walker tonight? I feel like he played extremely poorly. I thought there were moments of good, moments of bad. And without trying to cop out a super chat, I just think that we're going to have to I'm going to have to watch the All-22 and see what went well, what went poorly. You still saw some Quay-esque plays, and for good and bad. I thought you saw a couple of plays where he got into the backfield, used his athleticism, and looked like the player that, we're hoping for. And then the play in the hole to Saquon was not good enough. There was a play where he made a massive hit on a wide receiver. I think it was Devontae Smith. There are other plays where it looked like his tackling was a little bit off. So just a little bit up, a little bit down. It's kind of the Quay experience that we've seen in the course of his career. Again, I'm not trying to toot a horn here or anything or pat myself on the back, but linebacker play was the one thing that I said going in I still have a lot of concern over. You have Quay. We've seen 2 years of Quay. Hasn't been good enough. Was I hopeful? Yeah. Did I hope that this would be better in a new defense? Yes. But I thought we saw kind of the same Quay that we saw over the last 2 years in this game, quite frankly. Isaiah McDuffie can be a good run defender, but there are some things, and I talked about this in camp, as a coverage guy, there are things that you're going to get mismatches from time to time. Philly found it. They got Saquon one-on-one with McDuffie. It was a mismatch. Beautiful throw. Great catch. Touchdown, Saquon Barkley. And then, Eric Wilson, I thought had a nice game, but he's your base defender playing, 8-9 snaps. And then what do we get from Edgerrin Cooper? Still young and early, some flashes in this game, but linebacker definitely is still going to, linebacker's definitely still going to be a work in progress. We can kind of tell that right now. Again, I want to watch this a little bit more. Remember that the edge rushers were doing a lot of contain. When you do a lot of contain, you're not getting after the quarterback as much. It's harder to get the sacks and the pressures. So let's kind of press pause a little bit until A, the All-22, and B, we see maybe against a less mobile quarterback when they're not just trying to contain the entire time. Watching the injury made me sick to my stomach. Do you think Willis can lead the pack to victory if need be? Victory here or there. Yeah. In a 5-game stretch where I think you can maybe go 2-3. Sure. But yeah, it's going to be tough. Certainly not Certainly not an easy situation, that's for sure. All right. Well, if Nagler's on in Brazil, this probably is a great time that you guys, if you want to continue your live chat, can go and listen to Nagler over on Cheesehead TV. Nagler's blackout. Oh man, that might be must see TV. So yeah, I've probably got to get going. I'm going to try to watch the condensed version of the game, put together some notes, and then do tomorrow's show. So if you're a member, you'll get it. Actually, I'll probably post it at 5 a.m. for tomorrow. If you're a member, you'll get it slightly early. But my guess is that thing's probably out there around 3 a.m. for members and probably 5 a.m. for non-members. So it's not going to be that big of a difference tonight. But all right, guys. Thoughts with Jordan Love, Shirley, and that's going to be the dictator of, again, is this just one of those bad nights at the office and you bounce back and are better next week, or is this a catastrophic, season-ending sort of thing? We'll find out. Hopefully we get good news. I appreciate you guys a ton. 78 super chats. We've had over 2,000 people in the chat for the vast majority of it. Just really appreciate you guys a ton. You're the absolute best. I will see you guys all very soon. We'll do, some lives next week as well. Members Q&A, happy hour, Pack a Day Live, all that's coming next week. And in the meantime, look forward to the video tomorrow and really, really, again, appreciate all your support. We'll be here for you guys 365 days, whether it's Ryan Tannehill, Jordan Love, Malik Willis. Maybe they'll bring Alex Magoo back. Who knows at this point? But whoever it is at quarterback will be here for you guys 365 days a year. I will see you all soon. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go, and Love, please be okay.